Hello, and welcome back to the Alexander Society. This is a podcast about events and people from history explored through the mental fog of inebriation. I'm your host, living science experiment Derek, joined by my friend and co-host, the rat poison to my raw eggs, Tim. How are you doing, Tim?
I don't know how I feel about calling it rat poison, but I'm doing pretty good. What about you?
Not drinking rat poison and raw eggs, that's for sure.
I hope I never find out what that tastes like.
Yeah, me neither. All things considered, I could be doing a lot worse considering the circumstances. I'm excited about this one. I'm not particularly passionate. Oh, for fuck's sake, my audio is still peaking so fucking bad. I don't know how to stop that. But yeah, considering all of the circumstances, this isn't the worst situation an unemployed person has ever been in, so I don't have much to complain about. How have you been doing while we were recording?
So I'm doing pretty good, living life day to day. Got my furry menace right here beside me.
Now I'm just imagining Dennis the Menace, but with a fursona.
What are you drinking tonight, Derek?
What am I drinking tonight? So for my sips, I've got a strawberry blonde from Nothing's Left Brewing in Tulsa. It's a 5%. It's a strawberry flavored wheat beer.
I forgot you had that, and I almost bought it today. I was like, I might try that. Then I was like, we just had Nothing's Left. I want a different brewery.
If you want to try that one, you might go ahead and get it yourself, because this 4-pack that I got is flat. So I don't know what the fuck I've been doing wrong, but my beers have ended up getting to me flat, and I don't know why. But
this is the third time on the podcast, folks.
Other than the flatness, it's all right. It's middle of the road. It tastes like a wheat beer with strawberry sweetness layered on top of it. It's not the best fruity beer, wheat beer that I've had either. But it'll do. For my shots, I just pulled out some Crown Royal. I was feeling some Crown Royal. Just some easy.
That bottle I gave you, that was fucking huge.
Yeah, I've got your bottle. I've still got most of a bottle of my own on a fridge too. That's the same size. So.
Oh fuck! I forgot about that.
But yeah, I know you don't like Crown Royal, and I do. So.
I just don't like whiskey in general. I found a few that are decent enough. I'm just not a whiskey guy. So this week I am drinking Duchess Red, a sweet cherry sour, barrel aged, and it's brewed and bottled by. Ooh, I am going to butcher this, and I apologize. Barwarj Vichichi. I fucked that up. There's no doubt about it. It's Brouwerij.
Brewerij?
Let's go with that. Verhaeghe.
I've got no fucking. I need to see it written out.
And in Vichy, Belgium.
Oh, that explains it. It's fucking. I'm sure it's fucking either. I don't know. I know they speak French. They speak French and Flemish there, so I don't. It'll be one of those. But
well, they've been brewing for 5 generations, and it is 7%. Each can's 11.2 ounces. That's decently high, though. And then it's been a while since the tequila guys had a tequila on the podcast, so I felt like I should correct that.
The tequila boys.
So I've got Dolce Vita, lime. It's 100% agave, handcrafted, 70 proof, so 35% alcohol. And it's just got a gorgeous looking bottle.
Yeah, that is a really pretty bottle.
And it's brewed in Austin, Texas. Correction on that. It's made in Mexico, but it's imported in Austin.
Ooh, good shit.
So, Derek, what are we talking about, and what are our rules tonight?
Oh, yes. So, let's get our rules done first. Here in our illustrious society, we abide by an ever-changing set of rules. Rule number 1, every time somebody gets hurt in this story, we're going to take a sip.
Rule number 2, every time someone isn't American, we're going to take a sip.
Going to take a what?
3 sips, sorry.
And then rule number 3, every time someone consumes something that should not be consumed, what are we going to do, Tim?
We're going to take a shot.
Speaking of shots,
Cheers.
Prost is going to be one of the dumbest sporting events in all of human history.
I've heard about this Olympic event, and it's so beautifully, stupidly funny. I love it.
Oh, it's funny, but there's also like a level of just raw human tragedy to it as well. It's
A baffling amount of incompetence, too.
yeah, because a big part of it was incompetence, and the big part of it was just like deliberately using human beings as like scientific test subjects. So we're going to be talking about the, like I said, dumbest sporting event in human history. This is the men's Olympic marathon at the 1904 Olympics, which was the third Olympiad. Before we get into the details, I'm gonna, like I always do, we got to go over a little bit of background. But yeah, so this is a pretty simple topic. There's not a lot to it. Let's go ahead and go over some background information real quick. So the central topic, interestingly, about this event was that, or one of the first big thing that was wrong with these Olympics was that they were probably the least popular and least well followed Olympics in the entire history of the Olympics. And a big part of that was because it was not its own independent event this time. It was kind of attached at the last minute to a larger event called the St. Louis World's Fair in 1904.
Calling back to our...
Yeah, the D.B. Cooper?
No, H.H. Holmes.
H.H. Holmes, that's right. I don't know why I got Cooper and Holmes mixed up, but yeah, that one was the 1894 Chicago World's Fair. This one is the 1904 St. Louis World's Fair, which was less popular, like less well remembered, but was like actually like a whole lot bigger. Like a whole lot bigger event. At the time, it was a lot bigger deal. But it's just not as well remembered as the Chicago World's Fair. But this one was the St. Louis World's Fair in 1904. It was also called the Louisiana Purchase Exposition because it was celebrating the 100-year anniversary of the Louisiana Purchase, which was in 1803. Now you might notice 1803 to 1904 is actually 101 years. That's because they were late actually getting the fair started.
Lovely, just like America.
And this whole World's Fair, it was basically just a big celebration of imperialism and eugenics, basically, were the big themes.
Manifest Destiny!
Yeah, exactly. It had exhibits from 45 different states out of the 48 states that there were at the time. And exhibits from 50 different countries. And it was held on the campus of Washington University in St. Louis. The attractions included architectural displays, public lectures on natural sciences, and of course, along with natural sciences, also race science. It included food stands, theater and musical performances, displays of recent technological advances, and of course, how can we forget the human zoo?
That just fucks me up every time I hear about the human zoo. I think I remember bringing it up during the H.H. Holmes episode.
Yeah, that was a common thing for them to do at World's Fairs. It just, for our audience who aren't familiar, what they would do is they'd take native people from colonies all over the world, and then they'd bring them and they'd put them into cages that were made up to look like parodies of like whatever their like home villages looked like, and basically just put them out on display like animals. And the excuse that they gave for this was it was an anthropological like display. It was a way of showing like different human cultures and like the less civilized parts of the world. And it literally was just like putting people on display to be heckled by racists.
Just like the circus.
Yeah, that's basically what a circus is too. It's the reason they're called freaks. But the biggest event, the most popular event, the most well-attended event at the World's Fair was the Boer War reenactment, which was basically like they put up a big display showing like do you know what the Boer War was?
Fuck, actually it was, I don't know enough about it to say anything, but it was brought up in that book I told you to listen to, Starter Villain.
Okay, so basically, South Africa, what's now the nation of South Africa, used to be a Dutch colony, and then the English took it over, and it became an English colony. But the Dutch people who lived there and set up farms there, who were called the Boer, didn't want to be English, and so they launched a couple different wars of independence that was also tied up in like colonial policy regarding the right to use land that was owned by native people like the Zulus and the Tsawa. And it was just this big clusterfuck. And the two big things that we got out of it was, one, it was the very first time that Maxim machine guns were ever used in war, or the first time that modern repeating machine guns were ever used in war.
Gotcha.
The second thing was, it was the first use of modern style concentration camps. The British authorities and the British Army in South Africa actually put Boer people in concentration camps, and it was described by eyewitnesses exactly like concentration camps are described, with a lot of people packed in like like sardines and starving to death. So that's fun. That's fun, right?
I mean, as fun as bullshit genocide can be.
So, anyways, they at the 1904 World's Fair in St. Louis, they actually had a giant display where they'd show like different Boer villages, like reenactments of Boer villages, Boer farms, native villages of like the Zulus and the Tsawas, and then they'd also do like battle reenactments. And these big performances. And the weird thing that really drew a lot of the crowds was that all of the reenactors were people who actually fought in the Boer War. So on the British Army side, they had actual British Army, like, foot soldiers and colonels playing their actual roles in the war. On the Boer side, they had actual Boer people fight, like dressed the way they would have been dressed when actually fighting. They had actual native people from South Africa who were there, dressed in like their tribal regalia, and it really wild to think about. Imagine if we had like a war in Afghanistan reenactment where we actually had like U.S. Army soldiers like firing blanks at actual guys who are in the Taliban.
The fuck?
Yeah, it was wild. It was crazy. So yeah, that was one of the big pulls of this. It's a really, really weird thing that just doesn't happen anymore. It's something that can...
3 sips for all of that, because you mentioned the Boers.
Oh, yeah. So, what gets us to the Olympics is that year, 1904, the International Olympic Committee actually gave the bid for that year's Olympics to Chicago.
Lovely.
And that was an issue. That was an issue because the St. Louis World's Fair had been in the works getting planned for about 6 years by that point. And so to have the Olympics going on in a different major city in the same country at the same time would have pulled participants away from both, or would have pulled participants and visitors away from both events, which meant both events would lose money. And so there was a big kerfuffle, and ultimately the organizers of the World's Fair basically said, if you don't move the Olympics to St. Louis and make it part of the World's Fair, we're just going to put on our own sporting events and you won't have any participants. Because
the fuck?
Because far and away, the World's Fair in St. Louis was a way bigger deal to most people, even like athletes, than the Olympics were. Damn. So the Olympics just wouldn't have happened that year if they had done that. And so this guy named Pierre de Coubertin, who's a French guy, he was the founder of the Olympics. He's the guy who started the International Olympic movement. And he basically stepped in and told the committee, like, yeah, just give St. Louis the fucking thing. Like, let's not worry about this. Let's just visit this again in 4 years and write this one off, put it in St. Louis. We'll revisit it again in 4 years. And so that's why the Olympics were held in 1904 in St. Louis, and why they were one of the least popular Olympics ever.
Understandable.
Ever put on. And it was further not very popular It was made more not very popular because of a couple of different factors. The first thing, the Russo-Japanese War was happening during that time.
I didn't even think
And
about
so-
that. Yeah.
Yeah, so there were a lot of, even the countries that weren't involved, both in, well, mainly Europe. I guess maybe some countries in Asia might have if they wanted to, but mainly Europe. A lot of Europeans didn't want to risk going to the U.S. because at this point in the Russo-Japanese War, the political situation was not looking very stable, and so they thought that traveling might end up becoming unsafe. And the other thing was St. Louis at the time was really hard to get to from the East Coast because they didn't have highways, and they didn't have as many like trains going to St. Louis as they did going to like Chicago. As a result, the vast majority of the athletes that competed in the 1904 Olympics were either Americans or Canadians. Out of the 650 or so athletes who competed, only about 70 were from outside of North America.
Wow.
Yeah. So, that's our basic information. Let's talk about the race a little bit. So, the race itself was held on August 30th, 1904. There were 32 runners from 7 countries: the US, France, Cuba, Greece, South Africa, Britain, and Canada.
Does that mean you have to take 3 sips times 6 for both of us?
Oh, shit.
I'm asking for semantics. Do you count that as 1 or 6?
How about let's just finish our drinks, honestly.
Okay. Cheers.
Put her up. So yeah, the race was going to start from Francis Olympic Field, which was, of course, on the campus of Washington University. The route was set up for 24 miles around that, and it would just wind a big circle around the city. So the first big issue with the race was that the route was planned along a lot of back roads and unpaved roads and a lot of very rocky, uneven dirt roads.
From what I understand, this is the worst planned race route in the history of race routes.
Very likely, because if you look at it just on a map, like, it looks very even and very orderly. It's very aesthetically pleasing. And then you actually look at what the route looked like at the time. It's a lot of rocky dirt roads and hills.
Nut up or shut up.
So, right off the bat, that's not great. The second thing was the Olympic organizer who planned out the route and organized the entire event, was this guy named James Edward Sullivan, who was a violent racist and an amateur race scientist.
Because of course those go together.
And so he believed heavily in the ideas of like eugenics, and he decided that he didn't want this to just be an Olympic event. He wanted this to be a test case. He wanted to see how far and how effectively each race of people could do under severe dehydration.
Fuck him.
Fuck this guy. And so he did a few things. The first thing he did was that on this day, this date had an average temperature in St. Louis of 90 degrees Fahrenheit with about 50% humidity. The second thing was that they started the race. Now, usually it's customary to start a marathon early in the morning so that you can take full advantage of the cool weather, because that's how you keep participants safe.
No shit.
They started this race at 3 p.m.
The fuck?
Yep. And the third thing was, over the entire 24-mile course, the 24-mile route of this race, they had exactly 2 water stations.
Yeah, I remember that. That was bullshit.
Yeah, they had one at the 6-mile mark, which was literally a water tower that you would have to physically go up to and drain from the spigot. And then they had a second one at the half-mile mark, which was literally a well.
Ah!
Which you had to physically pull a bucket up full of water in order to rehydrate. We've got the race set up. We've got all of our racists.
Racists and racists.
Let's talk about a few of our notable participants.
Our notable racists.
Our notable racists. Our first character is Arthur Newton, who is the only returning Olympian to this event.
So he's the only one who has experience.
Well, they all have experience with marathons, or at least running. This is the only one who's ever...
I meant with the Olympics particular.
With the Olympics, yeah. Yeah, he came in 5th at the 1900 Olympic Marathon. In the 1904 events, he had already won a gold and a bronze in other competitions. So he was a pretty effective... this race also included 3 winners of the Boston Marathon. The 1902 winner, Sammy Meller, 1903 winner, John Lorden, and the 1904 winner, Michael Spring, who were all Americans.
So there was some pretty top-tier talent.
Yeah, there were some, for the time... Now, the big thing about the Olympics at the time was they really emphasized these are amateur events. So these are the best of the best as far as, amateur sports go.
Okay.
What is interesting and why it is wild that this event is not more well known is that this race was the very first ever Olympic event that included black people.
What? Really?
Ever in Olympic history.
I would have thought that would have come up more.
You'd think it'd come up more, but it just doesn't because... But yeah, the very first 2 ever black Olympians were Len Tanyana and Jan Mashiani, who were both Tswana people from South Africa, who were they were exhibits in the Boer War, sort of. 6 Sips, yeah. So yeah, they were Tswana people from South Africa they were exhibits. They were living exhibits in the Boer War exhibition. And both of them, back during the Boer War, had been long-distance messengers. And so they were probably 2 of the most experienced runners there.
Damn.
And they hadn't originally signed up for the event. They had just kind of shown up on the day of and said, hey, we'd kind of like to run. We want to see how well we do. And normally 2 black men showing up to a sporting event in 1904 would result in a couple of deaths. But in this situation, the organizers' racism actually worked in the black men's favor because this whole thing was supposed to be a test of
dehydration.
Yeah, how different races handled dehydration, and so they're like, well, we can use these guys as the control because obviously they're going to do the worst.
I love how racism just doesn't think.
Right. Also, one of them, Tanyana, he ran barefoot, which is fucking wild.
Bigger man than I.
Mm-hmm. Now, this next guy is fucking great. This man is my hero. I love this man so much. This man is named Andren Carvajal. He was a mailman from Cuba.
3 sips.
Yeah. So, Mr. Carvajal was a mailman from Cuba. He was the very first Cuban to ever participate in the Olympics. He had never participated in an actual organized racing event before. He had raised money to come and participate in this event. Basically, he just strapped on some shoes and started running one day, like Forrest Gump. And he ran from one end of the island of Cuba to the other.
Wow.
And along the way, he just collected donations so that he could collect enough money to be able to get transport over to the United States.
That's dope as fuck. That's real as fuck.
Yeah, and so he got it, and then he got his boat, and he got to New Orleans, and then while he was in New Orleans, he lost it all gambling.
I love this man. I'll drink to that.
And so now, once again, completely broke, he hitchhiked all the way to St. Louis from New Orleans. And he barely arrived in time. He arrived a couple hours before the race started.
Damn.
And when he got there, the only clothes that he had were his street clothes. So he had a cotton blouse, a heavy blazer, one of those flat newsboy caps, and long slacks with some casual walking shoes. And so before the race started, he took off his heavy coat and he cut his slacks off at the knees, and that's how he ran.
Damn. Could you imagine him having to go home and face his, like, hey, guys?
Yeah. Oh, that'd be so funny if he like lost all his money, then just decided to go right back. He had no other choice but to go to St. Louis. If he tried to go back to Cuba after losing all his money gambling, then...
No, I'm thinking, what if information traveled as fast as it does today, and like he still participated, but everyone knew his background, and he have to go face everyone back home. This motherfucker gambled all the money away, then still made it there, and then just...
From the get-go, he kind of built a reputation for himself in the U.S. as well.
Wow.
So, because right before the race started, at the time that the race started, he hadn't eaten any food in about 40 hours.
Shit.
And so, right before the race started, he saw that somebody in the crowd, like just the people who came to watch, somebody in the crowd had 2 peaches in their hands, and were planning on eating them as a snack. And so he walked up to the guy, and in his what little English that he knew, he asked, "Hey, can I have those peaches? I haven't eaten in 40 hours."
Jeez.
And the guy was like, "No, I bought these peaches. They're my peaches." And so...
Does he just rip them out of the guy's hand?
And so he stood there for a second staring at the peaches, and then he just ripped them out of the guy's hand and booked it.
I fucking love it.
And he booked it like right back up to the line, and then right as he got back up there, they shot the gun and the race started.
Wow, that's beautiful.
And then there's one big important guy to this story, that he has I think he has the crazy, like the story that everybody knows about this race, and that's Thomas. It's Thomas Hicks. Thomas Hicks. For now, all I'll say about him is that he was a longtime amateur runner. He had placed decently well at a couple Boston marathons, but he'd never won a race before. And so this was his first Olympics. This was like his 3rd or 4th race ever. So he wasn't one of the, basically like the 3 guys that had won the Boston Marathon before. They were the 3 favorites to win this race. And he was kind of sort of a nobody that just kind of came out of nowhere, and nobody expected much from him. But what Thomas Hicks did have was a very motivating training team, who had a few tricks up their sleeves.
That sounds ominous.
Let's get into the race itself. They fire off the firing gun. They start off the race by doing a few laps around the track at the stadium, and then they leave the stadium and they go on their route around the city of St. Louis. The top pick to win the race was John Lorden, one of the guys who won the Boston Marathon. He got violently sick and he dropped out at mile 10. Sam Meller, another guy who won the Boston Marathon, he started getting dizzy and weak at mile 14 and he dropped out.
Damn.
William Garcia was another American running this race. Most of the time that he was running, he was right behind one of the officials' cars, because the race officials had cars that would like travel along with the racers and kind of track their progress, kind of make sure they weren't cheating or anything. Oh boy, wait till we get to one of these stories.
Fat lot of good that did. I've heard this story before, but I don't remember enough of the details enough for it to be a surprise, because I can't remember what bits go with what pieces.
William Garcia, for most of his time in the race, he was running right behind a car that was being driven by some race officials. And so when they went along some of like the dusty, rocky roads,
okay,
it kicked up so much dust into the air that he ended up breathing it all in for several miles.
Ooh, yeah, no, that would fuck with you.
And he breathed in so much dust that the way that it was described, basically the dust in his lungs sandblasted the mucous membrane off of the inside of his lungs.
Ooh, that sounds like someone getting hurt.
Yeah.
Take a sip.
Yeah, it's a sip. And so, after a couple miles of this, he eventually collapsed, and nobody noticed.
No fucking shit, he collapsed.
And so, for about 8 or 9 minutes, until another runner came across his unconscious body, struggling to breathe on the side of the road, did he finally get help and get taken to a hospital. He almost died. He almost suffocated to death.
No shit!
There's this other guy named Frederick Lors. Pay attention to this guy.
Okay.
Frederick Lors got cramps in his calves around mile 9, and he ended up dropping out.
Okay.
He hopped in his manager's car, because they all had like their teams of like coaches and trainers and stuff that were like kind of going along with them in cars next to them as they were running. So when he dropped out, he hopped into his coach's car, and they began driving back to the stadium. And they decided to just go ahead and follow the same route that the runners were taking. He drops out at mile 9. When his manager's car reaches mile 20, the car breaks down.
Damn.
And so Frederick decides, well, no use just sitting here. I might as well run the rest of the way back. And so he gets out, and then he just gets back into the race at mile 20.
So how many miles did he get assisted with?
11.
11.
And he just started running back towards the stadium. And during Carvajal, like I said, he hadn't eaten 40 hours. All he had were those 2 peaches that he stole from a random guy. He stopped in the middle of the race when he came across an apple orchard, so he could go and get some apples and have a bite to eat real quick.
Just raids a fucking orchard.
Yeah. As it turns out, the apples he grabbed were rotten, and he ended up getting food poisoning.
Is that someone getting hurt, or is that should not be consumed? Sip or shot?
I'd say should not be consumed. That's what I had in mind.
Okay.
It's a shot, right?
Well, because of the food poisoning, I wanted to ask for clarification. I assumed it was shot.
Prost.
Cheers.
So he got sick from the rotten apples. Instead of just dropping out of the race, he decided to just take a break.
Sensible.
And so he laid down under a tree, in the shade of a tree,
and took a nap.
And he just had himself a nice little nap.
A nappy poo.
He was asleep for an hour. When he woke up, he just started running again. He finished the race 4th place.
God damn. I love this man.
This man is my fucking hero. I love this guy.
This man ran a race, took an hour nap, and still got 4th. Fuck yes, I love him. This man is my spirit animal I strive to be.
Yeah, this man had never run in a race before in his life, in like a organized race.
This man ran across his country to race, to earn money for the race, then got here, gambled all his fucking money away, still somehow made it to the fucking race, stole some peaches, then raided an orchard for rotten apples, and still somehow came in 4th after taking a nap from getting sick from them.
God, what a legend. What a legend. One of those guys that's...
At that point, I wouldn't even be mad if I was one of the people who donated. Like, you still got a fucking 4th, brother.
He got the very first Cuban to ever participate in an Olympic event, and he got 4th place in a marathon. That is something to be insanely proud of.
And this marathon of all marathons,
of like one of the sporting events that has been the most actively hostile to human life in all of human history.
Yes. Holy shit.
Jan Marciani, one of the Tswana people, one of the Tswana guys, he finished the race without incident and ended up in 12th.
Oh, by the way, which one was the one that was going barefoot?
Tanyana.
That running this sounds like getting hurt barefoot. Take a sip.
If that's what you decree.
You said it was like a freaking dirt road. There's no way his feet come out good, even if he's used to from hard terrain.
Well, I don't know, because if you see the feet of people who have been running barefoot for their entire lives, the calluses are practically practically shoes themselves.
I still feel like this kind of race would still fuck with you.
Oh yeah, undoubtedly. So yeah, I'll take the sip. So yeah, Masciani finished 12th place, which doesn't sound stellar, but considering that only
finishing it all in this race is impressive to me. This particular race.
Oh yeah, So during this race, they had 32 participants. Only 14 finished.
Fuck. So he was 3rd to last.
He was. Yeah, 3rd to last. The other Tswana guy, Len Tanyana, the guy who was barefoot, he finished 9th.
Fuck yeah, my dude goes barefoot and finished 9th?
Yeah, and here's the crazy thing. A lot of people who watched the race said that it was a great disappointment that he only finished 9th, because he was doing a whole lot better for most of the race until he got about halfway through, and he got chased about a mile off the route by a pack of wild dogs.
What the fuck? My mans could have done better with some wild fucking dogs?
Yeah, some some wild dogs just chased him for like a mile, and then he had to like run the mile back to the route and then get back on the route, and he still got ninth place. Let's get back to Thomas Hicks, the guy that I'd kind of refer to as our main character.
The guy you skipped over?
Yeah, I gave you the basic background because he was a very unassuming person at the start of this race. But let's get into his story, because his story is probably like, it's funny, but it's also probably like the most tragic part of this entire story.
Okay.
So Hicks was in a really solid position from like yes. So Hicks was in a solid position for basically the entire race. He was in like a really good commanding position. By mile 10, he was a mile and a half ahead of second place.
Fuck.
Yeah, he was doing really well. But also at mile 10 was when he started to collapse.
Oh, shit.
He started trying to lay down. And he just needed to lay down and take a break, which with a mile and a half lead, he probably could have afforded. But his trainers didn't let him.
Oh, fuck.
Every time he tried to lay down, they'd physically pick him up and push him back onto the road.
Asshole trainers. Especially with the way this Olympics went. Fuck yeah. Like, he had time for a break.
So eventually he got to the point where he got the message. He didn't try to lay down anymore, but he started begging them for water. He really needed water, obviously. But they kept saying, no, you don't need water. You don't need water. You just need to keep running. You're still in first place. You got to keep this lead.
I probably would have found something to use as a knife and slit some throats. I need fucking water.
Well, if nothing else, Thomas Hicks just really wanted to fucking win this race. And so eventually when he begged enough for water, they did give him some water, just not to drink. They took a wet sponge and daubed his face. And so after that, he kept begging for water. They kept saying no, and then eventually they were finally, okay, we'll give you something. It's not going to be water, but it'll be something.
What did they give him, Derek?
They gave him what I like to call the concoction.
The concoction. Oh, fuck.
The concoction was a mixture of raw eggs and brandy that was laced with 1/60th grain of strychnine.
That is the most vile combination. Take out strychnine, because I don't know what that the fuck it is. Brandy and raw fucking eggs. I'm assuming that's the fucking rat poison that you mentioned at the beginning.
Yeah, okay. Yes. Yeah, strychnine is rat poison. In very, very small doses, strychnine can be used as a stimulant. And actually, strychnine is now banned in the Olympics because it was used as a
performance enhancer?
Performance-enhancing drugs. Most recently, in the 2016 Olympic marathon, one of the racers was caught microdosing strychnine, and he was disqualified.
Okay, controversial, like, joking opinion. I think the Olympics should allow whatever kind of competitive advantage our athletes can. I want these people to destroy their bodies just to see what humans can achieve. This is not an original joke before or whatever. Like, I actually kind of want to see it. Do I want the people to actually get hurt? No. I think it's smart that they actually outlaw it. But just to see they're just like all out and out, like, what can the drugs do? Let's let them go full bore. Let's find the peak of human physicality.
Right. Okay. I think we should have like a separate games, like a separate Olympics that allow the use of performance enhancing drugs, and then we'll have just the regular Olympics.
No, I want this to be separate. Yes, obviously, but like I just want to see the peak. Like, I want to see what we can actually do if we know. Like, these guys are on everything.
Yeah, I want to see how well somebody runs a marathon on meth. I want to see how that helps them.
These people can get jobs nowhere ever again. These guys have so much in their system that's never coming out.
Here's the thing. I think this should be like a professional thing. I think they should just...
No, they should be able to... I'm saying, like, if they do this, if they destroy their body, like, even if it doesn't, like, physically destroy them right then and there, it's going to have irreparable harm. They should be taken care of for their life. I'm not saying we should just destroy them and throw them away. Obviously not.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. I think these people should be. I think these are the only people who should be paid millions of dollars.
Facts. Honestly, I think a lot of like everyone complains that athletes make a fuckload of money, but they only get to work for so many years and then their bodies are destroyed. Like a lot of footballers are fucked. Like they should actually be paid more and it should also be required that a lot of their money gets furloughed into their retirement years because they've only got like 10 like most people don't get much past 10 years. If that.
Anyways, so yeah, he was given this concoction of brandy with raw eggs and
Rat poison.
one six, specifically 1/60th grain of strychnine, which is a rat poison. In small doses like that, it acts as a stimulant, and it did keep him going.
Okay.
But here's the thing: he was given 1/60th grain, 3/60ths of 60th grain of strychnine is lethal.
Oh fuck.
He was given 2 grains during the race.
Oh fuck.
He came this close to being like rat poisoned to death during this race.
The concoction technically is nothing that can kill him, but it sounds really close. Should not be consumed.
Yeah. So the strychnine and just his sheer raw willpower and his desire to win this race were the only thing that kept him like standing. Never mind, like by the end, he was barely walking. He was barely keeping himself upright.
I don't know how this man lived.
It's honestly a mystery. Like a lot of people are like, how did this guy live? How did this guy survive this? This is like the most that you can subject a human body to before it just stops functioning. So Thomas Hicks somehow, by the grace of God, managed to make it all the way back to the stadium.
God damn.
And he passed under the entryway into the stadium. And then as he emerged on the other side, he looks up and he sees Alice Roosevelt. Alice Roosevelt, who is the daughter of then President Theodore Roosevelt, and she is placing the gold medal around the neck of Frederick Lors.
Do you know how big of a metaphorical nut kick that would be? I dosed myself with rat poison, came this close to ODing and dying.
Do you remember who Frederick Lors was?
He's the one who got a ride from his trainers, but the trainers...
He's the one who got the car ride. When Hicks looked up and saw this, he lost all of his willpower. He lost the will to live. He fell to his knees.
My soul would leave my fucking body at that point.
He fell to his knees and was nearly unconscious.
I would have started fucking crying.
The only reason that he finished the race was that two of his trainers picked him up by his arms and dragged him across the finish line, which is just a few yards away.
I can't, I would literally just be bawling if I was in his shoes.
Fucking nightmare. Like, athlete's an actual nightmare. Like, you could not... If an athlete is a bad person during their life, this is the hell that they go to.
Yes, exactly.
And it's made doubly worse by the fact that Alice Roosevelt was considered at the time to be the most beautiful woman in America.
So they're Marilyn Monroe?
Yeah, basically. Like, I'd actually like compare her more to like a fairy tale princess is the way that she was talked about in newspapers.
Damn.
Here, actually, I haven't. So yeah, the race is ended. We have, out of 32 racers who started the race, 14 managed to finish.
Finishing this race is the biggest accomplishment of your life.
Yeah, like, good for them. Like, holy shit. They managed the impossible. Yeah. Initially, Frederick Lors was declared the winner, the gold medalist, with a time of 3 hours and 13 minutes.
Decent.
Which is, even for today, that's like by the standards of today's athlete, like marathon runners, that's like slightly below average. Like, that's a pretty solid time. But again, 11 miles by car. But after being declared the winner, it was found out by the organizers that Lors had ridden a car for most of the route. And so he was, like, on the spot, he was disqualified.
No fucking shit.
Yeah. And so then they brought the half-conscious Hicks up to declare.
Could you imagine being in Hicks' shoes? You're fucking delirious at this point. You're barely cognizant. Huh?
Yeah, real quick, I'm gonna grab a picture from Google real quick. I'll send it on Messenger. Okay, look at that picture. Look at the fucking face on Thomas Hicks.
Is he the one sitting in the car with a sash on? He's like, don't let them know I'm about to fall over and die.
Yeah.
He looks like he's barely conscious.
Yeah, he does. He looks like he barely has any brain function left, but the only brain function left he has is I'm so fucking sick of you people.
He's like, I want to die. Let me die in peace.
Yeah. So Lors was disqualified, and Hicks was given the gold medal. Over the course of the race, Thomas Hicks lost 8 pounds.
Holy shit!
He had...
Losing 8 pounds over, what, like 3-4 hours?
Yeah, so he ended... okay, so yeah, he got gold medal. The silver medalist was this guy named Albert Corrie, who was a French immigrant to the U.S. To this day, the Olympic Committee has never been able to officially declare whether that silver medal belongs to the U.S. or France, because the Olympic the documentation from when he applied to compete in the Olympics has since been lost, and so they're not sure whether he competed on the French or the U.S. team.
Damn. Also, 3 sips. That's a new person. So was it 7 counting him?
It was 7 counting him.
Okay. So it could be 7 or 6 countries.
Yeah. I think nowadays he's kind of officially declared as French, but...
Okay.
The bronze medalist was that guy Arthur Newton, who was the only returning Olympian in the race. He got 3rd place. And then, of course, 4th place was the absolute fucking legend, Andrew Carvajal.
Our favorite.
I fucking love Andrew Carvajal. So, like I said, out of 32 racers, only 14 managed to finish. Several of the racers suffered serious injuries.
No shit! When you got a racist trying to conduct a race experiment.
This truly was the racist.
The racist raced.
So, yeah, they suffered serious injuries and illnesses, including dehydrations, heat strokes, severe sprains, food poisoning, and strychnine poisoning.
Damn.
Any sporting event that includes a strychnine poisoning as one of their injuries is not going well.
And no.
Also, can you imagine the hangover that Thomas Hicks had after that? Holy shit.
I would have blown my brains out.
The winning time that Hicks achieved was 3 hours, 28 minutes, and 53 seconds, which is the slowest winning time of any Olympic marathon to this day. And it is 29 minutes slower than the second slowest time.
Damn.
For reference, the winner of the 2024 Olympic marathon, this guy named Tamarat Tola from Ethiopia, had a time of 2 hours, 6 minutes, and 26 seconds.
I'd rather die. I am not a runner.
So, what's the legacy? What came from this? What happened after this? You know,
Please tell me more regulations and safety precautions were taken, Derek.
Tim, I have some bad news.
No regulations came of this.
Fucking nothing came of this. This entire sporting event.
Can I strangle the can we get our theoretical time machine, Derek, and you just take pictures of me strangling the racist?
Yeah, let's do it.
Could you imagine? That's how we don't do anything to fix the timeline on anything. We just go back in time and just strangle racists.
Yeah, we just go back and we just strap James Edward Sullivan to a chair and leave him in front of a train. So yeah, fucking nothing came of this.
God damn it.
After this event happened, it was completely memory hold. Nobody remembers the race. It's not memorialized with any plaques or anything in St. Louis itself. And there were no safety rules that were put in place afterwards. It was just quietly filed away by the Olympic community and completely forgotten about.
Jesus Christ. I can't get over the fact that nothing got fixed during this race. They learned fuck all.
They learned nothing. Although there was one bright spot that came of this. That guy who drove the car for most of the race and almost got the gold medal.
Yeah.
Frederick Loers. The following year, 1905, he won first place in the Boston Marathon without cheating.
I mean, good for him.
And then he died in 1914 at the age of 29.
Oh, fuck! What the fuck, Derek? What did he die of?
Tuberculosis.
God damn it! One of the interesting people in the race, and a fucker dies early. God damn it.
So yeah, that is all that I have about the 1904 Olympic Marathon. What are your thoughts?
First emotion is baffled. Second emotion is anger. Second emotion is sadness. Third emotion is sadness. What the fuck do you mean they didn't learn shit?
They didn't learn this. Honestly, the 1904 Olympics were the forgotten Olympics. Nobody remembers those Olympics. They don't get talked about. They don't get remembered. They weren't even cared about at the time that they were happening. They're the least monumental Olympics that have ever been put on.
Damn.
And this story, despite the fact that it was the very first Olympic event that included black people, the very first Olympic event that included Cubans, that should be better remembered, and it's just not.
It should be very monumentous.
And it's just because at the time it was so overshadowed by the 1904 World's Fair, which nobody today cares about.
God damn.
So anyways, you got any last thoughts before we go?
No. I think this is one of the most baffling Olympics ever held, and I can't put words to it. I don't think there's words needed, because what the fuck? All I can say is what the fuck. All I've been saying is what the fuck.
Racism does weird things to people's brains.
Racism make racist racist.
Thank you. That was extraordinarily profound, and my life has changed for it.
I'm sorry. So, Derek, where can they find you on social medias?
They can find me on Twitter at Visigoth. The first I is a 1, the O is a 0. They can find me on Blue Sky. The first I is an I, the O is a 0. Tim, where can they find you and all the podcast stuff?
So they can find me both on Twitter and Blue Sky at Tim, a.k.a. Otis, and then on social medias for the podcast at The Alexander Society Pod on Facebook and Instagram, and Alex Society Pod on Twitter and Blue Sky, and then Alexander Society on TikTok. So if you've enjoyed what you've listened to today, please give us a rate and review on your streaming platform of choice, and we will see you next time.
Bye.